allows us or enables us or encourages us to break the biblical commandments of human relationships more than these social media feeds in many ways.
Well, that's right. I think my only consolation here, John, is that I hope and actually believe that, as the old saying goes, this too will pass. I mean, some of our listeners may remember a technology called Napster, which was pretty disruptive some years ago, or some of the other kinds of technologies that were the hottest thing going for 20 minutes, and then they passed into history. It does appear that Facebook and Twitter have a little bit more staying power than that. But as you said, the vast majority of Americans are still not on Twitter. And I'm hoping that this era of temporary insanity that, as you said, even folks like you and I fall into from time to time, will quickly come to an end, and the better angels of our nature will prevail.
You're listening to Breakpoint This Week. John Stone Street here along with Warren Smith. Come to breakpoint.org. Click on the link on the homepage that says resources mentioned on the radio and podcast, and we'll link you to the articles and things that we mentioned on today's program. And don't miss our next short course, which is all about having difficult conversations about 4 very controversial topics in our culture: transgenderism, the race issue, the hashtag MeToo movement that's been taking place, and Warren, I forgot the fourth one. What's the fourth controversial topic that we're
global warming?
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's the wrong nomenclature. You need to follow Twitter, and you'll be up to date. Climate change, and so we've got a terrific lineup of experts that are going to help us not only answer questions surrounding those controversial issues, but also help you articulate that which is true and good in conversations about them that, whether you like it or not, are inevitable. Again, you're listening to Breakpoint This Week. We'll be right back.
We invite you to visit Breakpoint.org. While you're at our website, be sure to browse our online Colson Center store of great books and other resources. And you can link up to our social media sites like Facebook and Twitter.
Well, we're back on Breakpoint This Week. John Stone Street here along with Warren Smith. We spent the last segment talking about the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting, tragic event in California that claimed the lives of 3 people, and in addition to that, also the shooter, and about a dozen or so injured, and just horrific that this continues to be part of the American experience. But, so much has been said about that shooting, and so much is not known about really, what's behind all when these events take place. And so we talked about the social media aspect, which in many senses misses the real heart of the story, and that's kind of the point. And I want to use that to jump off onto something else, which was an enormously important story for a certain amount of the population. And it's amazing. A friend of mine who runs an organization that really works with teens and 20-somethings, Joshua Harris made an announcement this week about not only, leaving the principles of his best-selling book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye, which he did a couple years ago, or that his marriage was falling apart, which he made that announcement a couple weeks ago. But basically on Friday, he's announcing, hey, I'm walking away from Christianity. Now, it wasn't, I'll let his own words kind of say it. It's basically a falling away is how he put it. And so much has been said and so much has been written. My friend said nobody in their teens and 20s in his organization really knew that much about him. They may have heard of him, but it wasn't that big a deal. Of course, if you're in your 20s and 30s, his book was highly influential in youth ministry, either for or against. Like, it became kind of the foil, like, this is how we're going to do things, or this is exactly how we're not going to do things. So the announcement in that demographic was really big, and he was a high-profile pastor with Sovereign Grace Ministries. But there's been some really interesting things noting how this announcement was made. And that's what I want to bring up, not to continue our harping on social media, but there's a little bit of strangeness when you say, okay, I am questioning my faith. I used to be a pretty high-profile guy. I'm rethinking everything, and now I'm going to announce essentially my falling away from faith with a clearly not a selfie beside a lake, looking longingly into the sun on Instagram. Is that as odd as it sounds?
Well, it is as odd as it sounds, unless, John, you understand what we've been talking about, what the current media environment is. And it's what is required, it's what is demanded by sort of this voracious media machine these days. And I'm confident that one of the folks demanding it, at least implicitly, if not explicitly, is probably Joshua Harris's next book publisher. John, you and I have both published a few books in our careers, and you know that whenever we're talking with the publishers, one of the things that they ask you about is, how many followers do you have on social media? How many friends do you have on Facebook? Publishers care about this kind of stuff. And rightly or wrongly, I'm not sure it does a whole lot of good, but the publishers certainly think it does. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Josh Harris's posts on Instagram and other social media platforms are attempts to bring his social media platform sort of up to speed so he can write a book about all of these events. And I hate to be cynical, or certainly can't speculate much about the future, but if I were a betting man, which I'm not, that would be my bet, is that he's burnishing his social media platform, growing his platform in this way, in anticipation of a book. And of course, I should say that those who are opposed to Christianity, and that includes many in the secular media, they love this stuff. It provides an opportunity for them to write about Josh Harris and to, kind of get in a couple of digs at evangelical Christianity while they're at it.
I've tried really hard not to be cynical about it, just because I don't know Josh. And I have known other parts of members of his family, and they're just incredible people. Even on the podcast conversation that Shane and I had. And by the way, if you want to go back and listen to that, it's on our website. You can also just find it on your podcast feed by subscribing to Breakpoint. I tried not to, just because his story is loaded with incredible twists and turns. I mean, he's been a part of two movements, you could say, that largely fell apart around him. We know about the Sovereign Grace movement and the scandal there in that denomination. Really, again, outside of his control, not a scandal that he caused or was responsible for, or anything like that. And then if you go back to the kind of the early homeschool movement, his dad's name was in a list of names of people that not only were strong advocates of homeschooling, but also strong advocates of ways to talk about purity and things like that. And not in any way the same sort of voice as some of the other high-profile voices. This is far less a unified movement. You talk about the early homeschool movement than anything else. It wasn't a unified movement. It was kind of a loose collection of individuals who were really leading what has become a remarkable thing. But at least two of those individuals have not only had fallings, but high-profile fallings, and sexual in nature, and disappointed an awful lot of people along the way. And, of course, there's a personal tragedy in the Harris family with the death of Josh's mom. And so there's a lot of things that create doubt. I don't want to be cynical, but look, it's true that the easiest way to get published in the USA Today or get covered on NPR is by saying, I was an evangelical and I've changed my mind. And it's like all of a sudden they line up, and you talk about individuals that have done this, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And so I don't want to impinge motives, but I do want to say that it's a strange thing when we live our lives. So let's not impinge motives. Let's just say, look, it's a strange thing when we live our lives on social media and air our doubts. And Steve Garber, who is a good friend and I think has written tremendously on Christian education, he and I were talking about one of these individuals that kind of doubted publicly. And he had this profound line saying, I know people celebrate this as kind of helping people ask hard questions. But he said, it seems to me that this is much more inviting others into your growing disbelief. And I thought that is a very profound thought. And again, if we talk about what social media enables me to invite other people into my doubt. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And John, I came away with two takeaways from the Josh Harris situation. Number one, those of us who are in Christian leadership, let's be careful lest we fall as well. And number two, for all of us, we should pray for those in leadership. They're under a lot of pressure. They're under a lot of stress in many cases that we're unaware of. And I just think that prayer, and it sounds trite. It sounds like, well, wow, this is stuff I learned in kindergarten or in Sunday school when I was a child. But they're the important stuff. Pray. Care for the people around you. I think that stuff is really important, and I think these cases with Josh Harris and others that we've been at least alluding to are exhibits A, B, and C in that case.
And at least one source of doubt that we have in our culture is just struggling in the face of these really difficult questions. And I think a lot of Christians, I don't think this is universal, have kind of been raised or taught or have grown to think that Christianity can't really confront the hardest issues of culture. That's obviously not what we think at the Colson Center. That's why we tackle as many of these things as possible, mainly saying that Christianity can not only play in this game, but has the best answers. And that's why we've chosen the 4 topics that we've chosen for our next short course, which begins on Tuesday. You can sign up, go to breakpoint.org. It's a 4-week conversation on really difficult issues and how Christians should think about them and how we can actually talk about them, including climate change, the racial tension in our country, the hashtag #MeToo movement, and the transgender issue. All of these things where a lot of times when the conversation comes up at a party, we get silent. And that's actually what we don't want to do. Well, you're listening to Breakpoint This Week. John Stone Street, along with Warren Smith. We'll be right back.
You can learn more about Breakpoint and the Colson Center for Christian Worldview when you visit breakpoint.org. That's breakpoint.org.
Back on Breakpoint This Week, John Stone Street here along with Warren Smith. Come to breakpoint.org, click on the link on the homepage that says resources mentioned on the radio and podcast, and we'll link you to the various things that we talked about on today's program, including a link to the podcast conversation that I had with Shane Morris about Joshua Harris. Well, Warren, let's move on. We had round 2 this week of the Democratic candidates debate, and I haven't watched any of these debates. It's just been kind of too crazy, and it just seems wrong to jump into presidential season, over a year out. But at the same time, I did watch an awful lot of highlights and followed the coverage pretty closely of it, and it does seem that in round 1, it was basically everyone needed to kind of sign up for how much they hated Donald Trump. Round 2 was a little bit more of here's how we disagree with each other. We talk about polarization. It's going to be interesting to see if the Democratic Party can come to an agenda, a set of agenda priorities, but how far left it's going to be when it's all settled out.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've got a friend, and I should say in the spirit of disclosure that he is a conservative. He always says you can't outgive the Democrats, and I think that's what some Democrats are beginning to discover about themselves. If we're going to go in, we may as well go all in. So the argument, for example, on health care within the Democratic Party is whether you got the quote-unquote moderate position of Joe Biden, which is to sort of double down on Obamacare, expand Obamacare. And, of course, he was the vice president under Barack Obama, so there was he's got a vested interest in wanting that program to continue. And, by the way, Obamacare, whether I like it or not, has proven to be pretty popular with the American people. Or going all the way over to the left is the sort of the more Medicare for all programs that are being promoted by a number of the more progressive candidates, including my favorite, I guess you could say, to watch is Marianne Williamson, the sort of the New Age guru who has been very much in favor of Medicare for all and probably is on the far progressive end of that continuum, John, that you and I are talking about.
She would have been, in really almost any other political season, a candidate not taken seriously, a candidate kind of considered to be out there, because of her New Age beliefs. I saw plenty of coverage saying she kind of emerged as a serious player. And again, I don't think she has a long life here in this election run-up, but at the same time, what does it tell us about America that someone kind of with Eckhart Tolle and Oprah Winfrey ideas about energy and about love overcoming hate and about feelings over truth? I mean, these are kind of staples of New Agey sorts of beliefs, self-help, that sort of thing. What does it tell us that, is she the Donald Trump candidate of the Democrats this time?
Well, I don't think so, but I agree with you that she should not be written off. One of the things that, just from a sort of a worldview point of view, is that I think would be worth considering is the possibility that Marianne Williamson is feeling a void. And I think whenever there's that kind of a void, human beings long for that spiritual connection. And those that are part of a community or a culture, or in this case, a political movement that has sort of pushed conversations about spirituality to the margins, that does create a void. And I think Marianne Williamson is in part jumping into that void. And I think that's one of the reasons why she's getting some traction, is that she's talking about the political issues in spiritual terms. Now, you and I, John, would agree that the spiritual terms that she's using are false terms. They are not true and accurate pictures and stories of reality, which, of course, we believe that the Christian worldview provides for us. But there's an old saying that Satan can't create, so he corrupts. And a lot of times what shows up in that sort of corrupt world, this fallen world, has an echo of truth, but sort of denies the power thereof, so to speak. And I think, again, that's what Marianne Williamson is bringing to the political conversation these days.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we could do a deep dive on New Age spirituality, which we probably should do, given the popularity of Marianne Williamson. So, but, hey, look for that on Breakpoint. I'll dig into that here pretty soon. It's just an important topic. Two other things on the stage that I saw. Number one is you talk about how far left I think this party has moved. Former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper basically sounded like Mitt Romney on the stage, in terms,
Right,
he sounded like so conservative because basically not wanting to go overboard in government control of things. He just sounded way conservative. And, so that was the one thing that kind of popped up. And, I said two things and now I forgot what the other one is.
Well, while you're thinking about it, let me just say that, whenever you had a candidate like Hickenlooper say, try to bring those debates back to reality, then you would have someone like Elizabeth Warren say, I don't understand why somebody would go to the trouble of running for president and talk about the things that we can't do. So at least for the moment, those that are tethered, even with a long tether to reality on the Democratic side of things, are not getting a whole lot of traction. But it'll be interesting to see whenever things start getting a little more serious. John, we began this conversation by talking about how far we are from the election, and there's going to be a whole lot that's going to change. And in fact, the Democrats have already set a standard that you have to have at least 2% in the opinion polls before you can even be on the platform at the next Democratic debate, and that's going to eliminate a number of candidates right there. So I think we're going to probably get at least a little bit closer to reality as time goes on.
I know I was going to say, too, you got to give John Hickenlooper a little bit of credit for his Bernie Sanders line. I think that got a large, raise your hand if you want, but you senators create all these things and we governors have to actually clean up the mess. That was a pretty actually strong line from an otherwise, kind of boring attempt to propose normality. Well, we're going to watch this and see what happens. Thanks for listening this week again to Breakpoint This Week. John Stonestreet here along with Warren Smith. Come to breakpoint.org to learn more.
Does it seem that there simply isn't enough time in the day for God? Do you wish to have a closer relationship with God but don't know how? Well, if you answered yes to these questions, try a devotional. The Shop with Praise store has Charles Billingsley's Words on Worship, a 180-day journey to teach you how to turn your quiet time into a time of worship. Stop by the Shop with Praise store at the radio station or call 488-1010 and get your copy that will change your life forever.
Have you written a book? You can become a published author with Dorrance Publishing, the nation's oldest publishing services company. Countless authors have trusted Dorrance for nearly 100 years to bring their book to the market. Our professional team will edit your text, design your book pages, and create an appealing, eye-catching custom cover. Plus, our authors benefit from a custom book promotion marketing campaign that makes your book available where people buy books, like Amazon and brick-and-mortar bookstores. So make this free call right now to claim your free author's guide to publishing. Don't wait another day. Take one step closer to realizing your dream of becoming a published author and seeing your name in print. You've already written a book, so the next thing to do is make this free call right now to Dorrance Publishing and get your free guide to publishing. Call right now.
800-485-6904. 800-485-6904. That's 800-485-6904.
Bethel Christian School offers one of the most affordable tuition rates in Hampton Roads for 3-year-olds through 12th grade. Founded in 1972, Bethel Christian School provides quality academics for a warm and spiritual atmosphere with a college prep program, a national award-winning fine arts program, and Christ-centered athletics. Bethel Christian School is now enrolling, so schedule your tour at 826-7711, 826-7711. More information can be found at bcshampton.org.
The historic Virginia First Church of God in Christ 105th Annual Holy Convocation, August 19th through the 25th at New Community Church, 3615 Bishop Ted G. Thomas Way in Portsmouth, August 19th through the 25th with powerful speakers. Monday, August 19th, Prophet Mark Vereen.
You see all the sins that God is forgiving you for.
Tuesday, Evangelist Karen Clark Sheard.
Blessed in the city, blessed in the fields.
Wednesday, Bishop Frank White.
He came to lift the heavy burden.
Thursday, Dr. Bill Winston.
Can you stand to be blessed?
Friday, Bishop Carl Pierce.
Show us. Show me your glory.
And Sunday, Bishop Edwin Bass.
Faith will always win the battle.
The official day speaker will be General Board Member Bishop Ted G. Thomas Sr., Prelate.
The blood deliver here.
Register online at cogentva1.org, August 19th through the 25th.
Mold, trash, rodents, snakeskin, even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the CrossBased Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrossbasedcompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space?
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. If you've been involved in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident, or injured at work, you have rights, and you may be entitled to money for your suffering. Don't accept an offer you get from an insurance company until you talk to a lawyer. And we represent some of the best personal injury lawyers you can find. Tough lawyers that will fight to win your case. And they're so good they stake their reputation on it by only getting paid if you win. So if you've been in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or hurt on the job, find out today for free what kind of compensation you may be entitled to. Call the legal helpline right now.
800-796-1182. 800-796-1182. 800-796-1182. That's 800-796-1182.
The Lighthouse 100.1, pointing the way in Hampton Roads.
From hell that he fires at your brain. They arrive as thoughts, temptations, really. But Pastor Greg Laurie says it's up to us just how much we ponder the pleasure. You don't have to let that thought into your mind. It sort of knocks at the door of your imagination, and you can say, no way, I'm not thinking about that. Or you say, hey, come right in and make yourself at home. That's up to you.
This is the day when the lost are found. This is the day for a new beginning. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Again you hear all the angels are singing. This is the day when life begins.
Chemistry majors know that liquids can be adhesive or cohesive. Some liquids stick to other things, while others cling together. If you've broken a mercury thermometer and seen the little beads of mercury ball up together, you've seen cohesion. Well, when impure thoughts come at us, do we let them stick inside our minds, or do we repel them and cling to what we know is right? Today on A New Beginning, Pastor Greg Laurie brings good encouragement from the Lord's Sermon on the Mount. I remember the first time that I was tempted as a Christian. Now, before I was a Christian, I don't know if I even thought of temptation as, well, temptation. I thought of temptation more as opportunity, right? I mean, why not go for it? Oh, that looks fun. Oh, I'll try this other thing. No, I'll do this other thing as well. So when I became a Christian,
the believers told me, now, Greg, watch out, the devil's going to tempt you. And I'm like, the devil? What do you mean the devil? No, Satan is going to tempt you. How will I know when I'm being tempted? They said, you'll know. So next, I'm in high school. So this is, 10 years ago. And a few more. So I go to class in high school. And there's this girl. I'd noticed this girl. Trust me, she never noticed me. Very pretty girl. Sat toward the front of the class. And so after the class is over, I'm not making this up. This girl comes walking up to me and says, hi, what's your name? And I momentarily forgot my name. I was so stunned by her beauty and her blue eyes. I'm just like, I'm not really sure what my name is. And I have no idea why you're even talking to me. And I was like a brand new Christian. I had my Bible there and I had a little Jesus pin on and she's talking to me and she says, you're cute. Now I can't believe this is happening. You're cute. And she says, you know what? My parents are gone for the weekend. Would you like to come and stay at my house for the weekend? I thought, this is a temptation from the devil. Why did I say that? Because stuff like this never happened to me. Trust me. I know it's hard to believe. It just didn't. Now, maybe it happens to other people. It never happened to me. And I thought, this beautiful girl has been sent from Satan. So I told her no. I want you to know. I said no to this girl. But it wasn't that easy, okay? And that brings up a simple point. Temptation comes in attractive packages, right? Satan makes bad stuff look good. He makes wicked things look appealing. He makes deadly things look like they're going to be the best experience you ever had. He's a liar, and he'll do whatever he needs to do to pull you down. So everybody gets tempted. But here's something to understand. It's not a sin to be tempted. Did you know that? It's not a sin to be tempted. And I bring that up because temptation comes at the worst times. Like in church, you're sitting here right now and all of a sudden this thought comes to you. Maybe it's an impure thought. Maybe it's a jealous thought. Maybe it's a hateful thought. Maybe it's a prideful thought. But whatever it is, it comes, boom, and you think, I can't believe how twisted I am thinking this in church. Who says you even thought it? Have you ever heard of the fiery darts of the devil? They're like flaming arrows from hell that he fires at your brain. That doesn't mean you're a wicked person, though you are. But what it does mean is that you don't have to let that thought into your mind. It sort of knocks at the door of your imagination, and you can say, no way, I'm not thinking about that. Or you say, hey, come right in and make yourself at home. That's up to you. So it's not a sin to be tempted. Let me take it a step further. If you're not being tempted, something's wrong with you spiritually. Why would the devil waste his time on someone that is not a threat to his kingdom? So if you've been coming under spiritual attack lately, that could be an indication that you're on the right track and that you're a threat to the devil. So let's answer the question, where does temptation come from? Now, our immediate answer would be, well, the devil, of course. And there's truth to that, but we need to understand we play a key role in our own temptation. Listen, Satan needs our cooperation in this area to give in to temptation. Where there is no desire on my part, there is no temptation. We blame a lot of things on the devil, and rightly so, but we too are responsible. I mean, wouldn't it be great if the devil just took a month off every year? Wouldn't it be great if Satan started taking the month of August off? And I can announce it's just been revealed to me that the devil is gone for August. I don't know where he vacations. We know he likes warm climates, but he's gone. No devil for the month of August. You say, oh, it's awesome. You'd still get yourself into trouble. Because we play a role in it. Here's what the Bible says over in James 1:14. Everyone is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and is enticed. And when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. That basically breaks down temptation for you. The 5 steps of temptation. Number 1, the temptation itself. Every one of you is tempted. Every one of you is going to be tempted. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says there's no temptation taking you, but such as is common to man, which means we all face the same kind of stuff. And then over in 1 Peter, Peter says, don't think it's strange when you go into fiery trials and times of temptation. It happens with all of us. Those temptations come our way. But again, remember, it's not the bait that constitutes temptation, but the bite. Let me repeat that. It's not the bait, it's the bite. So it's dangled in front of you, that's the bait. You don't have to take the bait. But if you take the bite, now you're responsible, bringing you to the second phase. You're under its power and frankly enjoying the experience. James 1:14 says, you're drawn away by your own desires. So it's sort of like the temptation comes to your mind and you say, well, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to just kind of take it for a test drive, right? I'm going to just kind of think it through and what would it be like? And you kind of play it out. And now the problem is already in full bloom because now basically you've bit on the hook. You're drawn away and you're enticed. And then ultimately, number 4, it gives birth to sin. Verse 15 says, when it's conceived, it gives birth to sin. There's a momentary euphoria in sin. So we need to understand that sin can be fun for a moment. It's sort of like getting the sugar high and then coming down. By the way, if you're a grandparent, here is the role of a grandparent. Pick up your grandkids, number 1. Fill them up with sugar, number 2. Return them quickly to their parents, number 3. Job done. You know, there's that sugar high. The kids they're excited. They're climbing the walls. They're so happy. And then they come to, down. And that's what sin's like. It's like, oh, this is fun. They lied to me. It's actually fun. No, I didn't lie to you. I told you sin is fun. Jumping off the Empire State Building is fun. Until you hit the ground. That little momentary euphoria of sin can be fun. Sometimes it's not even fun, is it? Sometimes you think, oh, this is going to be so amazing, and it's actually not even fun for a few moments. But even when it is, there are the ramifications. First, there's the guilt. That is, if your conscience is working. Then that dead feeling. And now you're separated from God. And sin has done its work, and it brings forth death. Listen, you're not separated in your relationship from God, but you are separated in your fellowship with God. So what you want to do is restore communication. And the way that happens is you have to admit your sin, turn from it, and ask God to forgive you. 1 John 1:9 says that we will confess our sin. He's faithful and just to forgive us our sin and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So that's how basically sin works. We like to blame everyone for it except ourselves, but we play a role.
Pastor Greg Laurie will have the second half of his message in just a moment. We enjoy hearing from our listeners. Their words are so encouraging.
Dear Pastor Greg, I found you a year ago on CSN Radio after a friend suggested I check it out. I was mesmerized with your voice and your gospel message. You see, I lost my wife 5 months ago after a long illness, and I haven't missed your radio or TV program since. I began reading the Bible daily last September and continue to do so. I'm going to church again, and I owe it all to you bringing me back to our Savior Jesus. May God continue to bless you in your ministry.
It's not only encouraging to hear from our friends, but it's good confirmation these studies are making a difference in people's lives. Would you write Pastor Greg today? Drop an email to greg@harvest.com.